Roads? It's the Ernest Hancock Show. Where we're going, there aren't any roads.
Yeah! What we fight for here on Declare Your Independence of me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, hey, from the beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. Oh, we're getting the magazines almost done, almost done. You know, we're going to be probably releasing it, looks like this Friday. So it's this weekend I read all the articles in one sitting. Man, we have 33 articles. It's 100 pages and no ads. I mean, this thing is going to kick booty. Okay, well, we got another booty kicker here. Matt Southworth from, now this is, I want you guys to write this down, Foreign Policy for the Friends Committee on National Legislation. Now, this is their website, FCNL.org. Friends Committee on National Legislation. Now, this is a group of Quakers that I had a lot of good, I tell you, some of the very, very supportive people when I first started doing radio. The reason they supported and sponsored the first radio show that I had, starting in Scottsdale here in the Valley, here in Arizona, were Quakers. And they said, Ernie, when I sold my family pizza restaurant, they said, Ernie, we have to get you on the radio. We got to get you on the radio before we go into Iraq. They're like, we got to get the voice out. We want people to understand. Because they felt there's a voice that needed to be heard against the war. And it was, because being against the war back in 03 was not popular. February 03, I'm like, ooh, let me tell you when this war starts, the insurgency. It's going to be a Marine with his boot up on a pile of rubble, holding an American flag saying we win, and then the war starts. Now, Matt Southworth, right after that, he goes to Mosul, Iraq for 6 months. He's in intelligence there, he's going to go get him some terrorists. Well, as he captures them, he's there, torturing them. He's probably not waterboarding them or, beating them too hard or nothing. But, the way you're treating other human beings has to change you. And part of his process was going to Washington and doing his best to take our voice that's, being heard out here, going, oh, heck no, and being where the rubber meets the road there in Washington, D.C., trying to get policy changed. Now, one of the things, you were telling me about the 8th anniversary of us being in Iraq. What happened on that day?
Yeah, actually, I was at the White House with Veterans for Peace, a group that I'm a member of, and Iraq Veterans Against the War, a number of other groups as well. And we are protesting the 8th anniversary of the Iraq War when President Obama authorized and began bombing Libya. So something to be said for that.
Yeah, they, I don't know, there's a secret handshake thing with these dates. I'm wondering from your perspective, when we go into Libya, now, the process, it's, humanitarian. We have these guys here and there, and we got, them on Facebook saying blah, 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 and we need to go in because of fill in the blank and humanitarian that and no-fly zones. And then, there's special forces from other countries in there. And we bring in the ships, and they're going to more than the helicopter gunships won't do anymore, and boom, we need troops. And when they start bringing in the helicopter gunships, immediately following that is when troops go in. Now, there were some amendments and stuff. Tell me about the war powers limitations. Walk me through that.
So the actual war powers resolution says that the president can only engage in unilateral military action if there's an imminent and immediate threat. And
to
who? Course, well, that's the question: is how this was interpreted to enable the president.
And the word unilateral, it was a long time before I even knew what that meant. Uni means just us. We just decided. Yep. No little group, no meeting, no nothing. It got so uni, it's the president. It's down to one uni. So we got one unit, one uni. It's the president. He says we go, and they went. So
yeah, and that's pretty much how it went. That interpretation of the war powers resolution, according to some of my lawyer friends, is actually inaccurate. Of course, Gaddafi was not an immediate threat to the U.S. or U.S. assets or U.S. interests, so using that as a justification to intervene in Libya under any grounds is actually false. If it was a humanitarian thing, which is the overarching claim, well, then we would be in a lot more places around the world. And in fact, we would have to intervene on ourselves in some places because of some of the things we do. So that's worth noting as well. But this whole intervention, this whole war on Libya, as you say, it's part of a process. And now Congress has sent a very strong message, though. The vote, the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a bill that authorizes funds every year for the military, had an amendment on it offered by Representative John Conyers of Michigan, which said no, there will be no funds used for the deployment of ground troops in Libya. And that vote actually passed 416 to 5, which is really unprecedented. Congress has never had an anti-war vote that passed by such a huge margin. I don't think Mr. Conyers has ever won a vote that big on the NDAA. So Congress has sent a very strong message to the president saying, first of all, we didn't authorize this. That's another amendment that passed. And second of all, we do not sanction the deployment of U.S. troops in Libya. We do not want a third war. Now, that might surprise a lot of folks because, Congress is usually seen as kind of a mouthpiece of foreign policy, which just supports whatever.
No, what's going to surprise me is if they keep boots off the ground. That's what's going to surprise me.
Yeah, and that's what this amendment was about. No,
that's what the amendment was about, but that doesn't stop boots going on.
Well, that's true, but the president, if he wanted to deploy troops to Libya, he would need either an authorization of the use of military force, which is boots on the ground, essentially, or he would need, a declaration of war by Congress. And Congress has essentially already said through this vote. I mean, if it were a little closer, I would say the possibility was there. But 416 to 5 is a very strong message that Congress does not support a third war in Libya, where U.S. Soldiers and Marines are taking the brunt of the fighting.
Okay, Matt, I got it. I want to help you out here so that you don't go into a funk. All right. How are you going to deal with it when U.S. troops actually go into Libya? I mean, what's going to be your mindset? What's going to be your fallback?
Well, I hope it doesn't come to that. I think the thing that I would point out is we have Congress on record saying that they don't support that. Is it a possibility? Now, I've actually written pretty extensively about this being a process and boots on the ground being inevitable. But I think there is a kind of a tussle for power here between Congress and the executive branch as to whether or not Congress is willing to authorize more troops.
Okay, let me go ahead and I'm going to bust your bubble a little bit here. There is no battle. It's the appearance of a battle. They are going to do whatever they want to do. This is just distraction. They always do what you look at history over the past 20 years, there was never a time that when was it that they started bombing people that eventually we didn't have troops there? When did that happen?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there have been limited instances, but I think, history is definitely on your side. My question really is, at what level does the establishment become frustrated with itself? Is it possible? And some would argue no, I'm sure. But I think we're really on the cusp. I mean, we've got over 100,000 casualties, people who are injured, medevaced, or killed in combat or committed suicide out of Iraq and Afghanistan, over 100,000. That's something that, has got to be weighing on the minds of folks, no matter where you're coming from. And I think there could be some war fatigue here. I hope that's true. I don't know if it is or not, but I hope that's true.
Well, I agree with you. It's not that I'm pessimistic. I'm very optimistic. I do a lot. It's where I put my effort. If I'm trying to convince a congressman, I mean, the only time that we deal with congressmen and doing this kind of stuff is to demonstrate how useless it is dealing with congressmen.
Yeah.
But what you're doing, keep in mind, it's how many minds you change. It's coming on this show. It's sharing your experience. It's talking to congressmen. I don't have a problem with that. Their staff and doing it. Just but to think that you're going to change the machine, even if you change the congressman's mind, that is not where the power is. The power is your voice and what you're doing right now. And I want to make sure the audience can help you do what you're doing and be more successful. Tell them what you need them to do and where to go.
Well, absolutely. One of the biggest things that folks can do now is even if they're not necessarily into it, is write their congressman and say both the war in Libya with ground troops is unacceptable, and Afghanistan, we need a sizable drawdown in July.
A sizable drawdown? What does that mean?
Well, the beginning of the end of the war is what that really means.
All right. So is there an end to the Afghanistan, you think? Is that on the horizon?
Well, I tell you, we got a long fight there. I think we're going to be in a little bit of trouble for a few years there.
Matt Southworth. Matt Southworth, he's with Friends Committee on National Legislation, FCNL.org. He's there representing himself and many of us, applying a voice that needs to be heard to the eardrums of some guys that could do something about it if they wanted to. Matt, thank you for being there and coming on the show.
Yeah,
we'll be right back.
Much.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. Readers of freedomsphoenix.com are constantly provided the information that detail the real news between the lines of propaganda about government policies and the true relationship we all have with coercive governments. Learn the true condition of our economy, innovations and technological breakthroughs in energy, health, computer science, and space travel. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the mainstream media, the media that is so last century. Corporate media has evolved into nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but we now have a fantastic alternative. FreedomsPhoenix.com provides constant news updates on the issues that affect our lives in the most important ways. Our liberty and our property are under constant attack, and FreedomsPhoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda while encouraging the participation of our readers. Join us at FreedomsPhoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. FreedomsPhoenix.com, where the revolution between the ears has already matured.